Okay, good morning. So we're finishing off Shin Yud Aleph today. The last two seifim of Shin Yud Aleph. The Mechaber says in Ches, Tiltul min atzad letzorich dava hamuta is muta. To move something indirectly for the benefit of a muta, non-mukta item is allowed. Hilkach tznoin shetoman ba'aretz. You've got a radish, a vegetable which is in the ground. Umiktsas olav megulim, and so part of it is exposed. V'lo hishrish, and it hasn't taken root. V'gam lo nischav nizriya, and you didn't put it there. You didn't plan to plant it. Note, like you're allowed to take out that radish. That's not a problem to do that on Shabbos. Aval pisha b'netilas mazes offer imkomei, because there's no problem of toilesh because it's not taken root. And you didn't intend to plant it, and the only issue is tiltum atad, because you're going to, when you take out the radish from the ground, you're going to move the offer which surrounds it. So afal pisha b'netilose mazes offer mimkoima, you're going to move the offer from around it. V'afal pisha hoisef machmas lachus hakarka, and even though it was perhaps benefiting from the moisture of the ground, muta, nevertheless, it's muta to move that radish. Okay, let's do the Mishnah Berurah till there. Siv Kotzen Chofei. Mixas olav megulin. Te'ilo hoya olin megulin klal. Because if they weren't exposed at all, hari bal karcha mazes offer b'yodayim v'osa. Then to access the radish, you're going to have to move the ground, the offer, and therefore that would be osa. Even if you want to sort of stab a needle or a spit or something into the ground, but into the snow and take it that way, or kamei b'sif tes, which is the next sif, gam kein also, that would not be allowed. To near a ka'isa guma, because it looks like you're making a hole in the ground. And there are those who are matir, they're makel if you do it by way of a needle. And we're talking about where the radish has not taken root. To hishrish, because if it has taken root, even if the tsnoin was exposed, you've got a bigger problem. You've got a problem of toilish. You're what's one of the avos malachas. You're reaping on Shabbos. Chav zayin v'gam, and you didn't intend lizriya, you didn't intend to plant it. Because if you did intend to plant it, afshla hishrish also, even if it hasn't taken root, it would be also to pull it out of the ground. Because you wanted it to take root, or and it's sort of in the ground in the normal way of planting it. The Magen Avram asks a question for the chitin shezaran bekarka. If you've got chitin, wheat that is sown in this plant into the ground, and it hasn't yet taken root, you're allowed to take it out and to eat it. And therefore, so how come over here we're stricter? You shouldn't move away from the psak of the mechaber. The keinimtze b'makam rishonim dvarkech Ramban b'chidush of Ameiri v'hidlel teres Ameiri demayri shelo hoya hazroim adayin mechusin ba'ofa. They answer. They wanted to say that when we allowed it previously, it wasn't mechusin ba'ofa. It wasn't covered with offer. But either way, if unless it's so what have we seen from here? That if you've got a radish in the ground, which is covered, but you've got part of it exposed, it hasn't yet taken root, and you didn't intend to plant it, then you're able to pick it out, because the only problem is tiltum atzad of just moving the offer. If even though you're moving the offer, mimkoimai, we say it's muta in sif kof ches. Afal pishem b'tinasei rotzolem the mikol makom rak tiltum atzadu. The whole issue here is indirect moving of mukta of the earth. V'kavnosu b'shvil lekichas atznoin do dova muta, and tiltum atzad letzerich dova hamuta, which it is because the radish is edible. Is muta. We're talking about where your radish is in the field. Because if in earthenware floor in the house and you sort of keep your radish there, because if it's in the house, you're going to come and smooth over the ground. Mashenkein in the field, you don't really care if it's bumpy, so you won't do that. If, however, we spoke about previously, that if you've got some chol designated in the corner, they used to keep, to cover over tzoa and other things. So then, if it's hidden in there, that would be okay. Even if it wasn't exposed at all at the top. Commotion is Ramas Ba'agba Sivtes. וכן זה עשר בגמרא גם כן עמודים של אורג שיתקון בקרקע הבית שעושה לטלטל ממקום שהם יביאו להשוויץ הגומס אחר כך. So the whole heter over here is dafka in the field but not in the house, because in the house there's a separate problem of meshava gumos. Okay, carrying on now, the Ramah says, the Ramah Haggah, even if you place this radish in the ground before Shabbos, liyosham kol Shabbos, that it should stay there the whole of Shabbos, and then you change your mind and you want to eat the radish on Shabbos, it would be okay. The ein ba'achlim mishum basis l'davar ha'asur, says the Mishnah Berurah. Siv Cotton Choftes. Va'afilu nichu rotzaloma. Da'after ba'almei meniach davar muktzah aleze kli al das she'esham kol Shabbos. Ordinarily, if you put a muktzah item on something for the whole of Shabbos, l'kula amanasa kli gufa gamkein muktzah mitam basis l'davar asur. The base for it is going to become a basis l'davar asur, and therefore you got a problem. V'chanal b'simen shin tes sif dalet. Mikal makom ha'chaloi nase ha'tznoin basis la'afa she'al gabay. Here, the tznoin doesn't become a basis for the offer on top of it. Mitam de ein ba'achlin. I.e., we say that ein ba'achlin mishum basis l'davar ha'asur. For Ratzalema, the ba'achlin ein elu lo shayach basis. It's not shayach basis over here. Because if you think about it, it's the radish is the basis for the offer on top of it. That's not your intention. El adrab, on the contrary, you want the offer to serve the radish. And so too, if you've got fruit which are hidden in teven, in straw, in the next sif, coming up, even if that was your intention to stay there the whole of Shabbos, because it's not serving the teven, it's the teven which is serving the food, and the food won't become a basis for that. So in short, as long as it hasn't taken root and you didn't plan to plant it, you're allowed to move the radish and take it on Shabbos, because it only involves tiltum and atzad, which letzerech davar hamuta would be okay. Okay, let's carry on. Says the Mechaber, the tiltul, we're 3 lines from the bottom of the page, still about 2/3 of the way through ches. The tiltul begufay afilu letzerech davar ha'asa is muta, and moving it begufay, not with your hands but with your body, afilu letzerech davar ha'asa is muta. Hilkach, therefore, kash she'al hamitzah. If you've got straw on a bed, the stomach muktzah lahasaka, it's been set aside. This straw has been set aside for burning, and therefore it's muktzah. Mananeh begufa, you can move it with your body. If, however, you placed a cushion on top of it, and therefore you've designated because you've therefore designated it as a mattress. If you think about it, that would also help. Okay, says Mishnah Berurah Lamed, v'tiltu begufay pirush she'eino nogeh biyodei. You're not touching it with your hands. Ki im begufay or b'shayvarav, with your body or with another limb, with your foot or something. Mekilim b'yosim mishat tiltum latzad. We're more mekel with tiltum begufay than tiltum latzad, and he explains in the footnote in 32. Shlomo Zalman explains, because one of the reasons for muktzah is that you might come to carry it outside. But if you're doing tiltul begufay with your body, we haven't got that chashash, and therefore we're more mekel generally with moving it begufay. Valkain, back to the Mishnah Berurah, muta afilu tzarech davar also, that's allowed. Tiltul begufay would be allowed even ledavar ha'asa. Lamed Aleph, the stomach, hainu b'mekoim shemasikin bekash. In those places where they use kash, straw, as fuel, avol b'mekomeseinu stomach omed l'maychel behemo l'shchiva. But in our places, says the Mishnah Berurah, most straw is used to feed animals or to lie down as a mattress. Umutza l'nanei afilu b'yad, and therefore it's not muktzah, and you can even move it with your hand. V'da. That the straw, the Shulchan Aruch is talking about a case where kash was not put on the bed l'shem shchiva. mokum. Then there'd be no problem because it's a mattress. There'd be no problem. Menaneh begufay says Mishnah Lamed Beis kadesh tzof v'rach lishkei lavav. You want to just smooth it over so it's pleasant to lie on. Shari hechinoi. Even if you didn't think categorically, explicitly that you're going to lie on it, by putting a car or a keses, a cushion on top of it, you've demonstrated that that's your mattress. And if you think it clearly, then mahani because that's the thinking is enough. You don't even need to do the act of putting the car or keses there. That would be okay. All right, so let's just finish off. Tes. Peiros hatzmunim beteven bekash hamuktzim. If you've got fruit which have been stored away in straw or in chaff, which are muktzah, yochel litchev bohem machat, you're allowed to put a needle, a bekush or a spit into the fruit, v'noitlom, and then you can take it. V'akash ninar me'alov, and the straw will just fall away by itself, and therefore no problem. If, however, they're hidden in sand or in earth, okay, says the Mishnah Berurah Lamed Hey, Beteven or Bekash. What's the difference? Teven hu hakona hanikta. That's the straw in mashiboilas. The kash hu mashanisha besode acha ktira. Kash is the chaff that stays in the field afterwards. Lamed Vov hamuktzim lafukem hezminam lamaychel behem lashkiva. If you had designated the kash or the teven as animal food, then there's no problem. It's not muktzah. In our places, as Mishnah again, that stam teven is meyuchad l'maychel behema, and therefore it's not muktzah. V'ayin le'el b'simen shin ches v'mishnah berurah sif cotton kuf yud ches mashe kosavnin in chavila shel teven. What we said regarding bundles of teven. If you look at 35, he says sham kosov shem mekaymes she stam chavilas teven oimdes lebinyan v'lechazes b'in ginois harhin muktzah. That if you're in places where stam teven is used for building purposes, then stam it will be muktzah. As opposed to for animal feeding, then it will be mutter. Yochel litchayv, so you can take a needle or a spit and you can dig out the fruit. Says the Mishnah Berurah Lamed Zayin tavitiltim and atzad letzorech dova hamuta v'shari, and that is permitted. Kedilel b'sif ches, like we said just in the last sif. V'chol zeh kasher tomim b'teven hamukta shemunach b'mkoyme v'omid lahasaka. That's specifically if it's hidden away in teven, which is there in this, for fuel purposes. Avalim lokach me'er Shabbos mixas menovit minam by Paris. If you took some of it before Shabbos and then you hid your fruit into it, zevadan istalek melateven she muktzah. Because once you've started using it before Shabbos, then the teven is no longer muktzah, and there's no problem. Because that is its use. You've designated the teven to be the storage place for your fruits. And therefore you can take it, no problem. Last sif, lamed ches over offer. If you hid it you hide it in the sand or in offer. Hainu ba'offer should sovra b'bayis l'shtamish by. Again, we're talking about earth that you've put on the side of your room to use, for over Shabbos. The ein alay shei muktzah, that now no longer has the shei muktzah. V'hinei lefi mashen izbayar b'simen zeh the tiltum l'tzad l'tzorech dova ha'osa osa. He says something very strong now. That we've established that tiltum l'tzad l'tzorech dova ha'muta is allowed, but l'tzorech dova ha'osa is not allowed. Teda, you should know, l'nochen, it's correct, the mashenagin eza anoshim, what some people do, limker b'Shabbos u'lekabel hamois. They sell things on Shabbos, and the clients and the customers come along and they put down the money on their table, and the Jewish seller is makabel mois bekliya they beged, they makabel it, they don't touch the money, but they take it by way of a beged or some other instrument. Or goyre besakin, they take a knife and they drag it onto a plate or something or somewhere else. Milvad hara agdol shemekach umemka b'Shabbos. Aside from the issue of being involved in mekach umemka on Shabbos, they're blind in many instances. They're overlooking many halachas. Even if you want to tell me it is tiltum atzad, it's tiltum atzad of money, which is dava ha'asa. For ancient suffix shu isu gomer, and therefore it's clear that it's an isa gomer. Okay, beseda.